One thing nice in this book, I think I'll copy this and post it on my website, or Guru Nishta, can you copy? If you get this book, it's on ISKCON Desire Tree, right, I think. Atmananda gave us the link last time, and if you get this, in there, there's the Artik procedure, and I think it would be nice to have that. And we're posting on my website the full process of deity worship, the home version, but the procedure for doing Artik is nice to have for those of you who don't exactly know how to do it. So, in this book, on page 80, if you have this book, there's a section called Favorable Principles and Unfavorable Principles. And these are two verses from Nectar of Instruction, also known as Upadeshamrita. Upadesh means instruction, and Amrit means nectar. So, in this section, they have just a section called Unfavorable and Favorable, which is this verse. And so, since it's in the book, I decided, well, let's discuss it. Page 70, well, no, it's actually 74. The page number is 74, but in my on top of Adobe Reader it says it's page 80. But the bottom of the page is 74. So I want to read these principles and we'll discuss them. And in Nectar of Instruction, it gives 6 principles which can destroy bhakti and 6 principles which will enhance or be favorable. So, let's read the first one. These are verses 2 and 3 from Nectar of Instruction. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. Too entangled. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. So, what does eating more than necessary mean? If you eat chocolate, is that more than necessary? We have silence here. We're afraid to answer that question. Well, that depends how much chocolate you eat, right? Now, you know there's a controversy about chocolate. Does chocolate come under this? Well, I'm drinking tea here. Is that, but I don't know how to open it. Hold on, everyone. Wow. I must be really weak because I couldn't even open it. So, if you're going to eat chocolate, don't eat too much. And make sure your guru allows you to eat it. Otherwise, if he doesn't allow you to eat it and you eat it, you're in trouble. Your guru allows you to eat it, right? Because he likes it. So, like I always say, if you're not initiated, make sure if you want to eat chocolate, you pick a guru who allows you to eat chocolate. That's very intelligent, right? And if you are initiated and your guru doesn't allow you to eat chocolate, then make sure you find a Siksha guru who allows you to eat chocolate. Every good devotee knows that, right? And that way you won't be breaking this principle of eating more than necessary. So, what does Rupa Goswami mean by eating more than necessary? And who eats more than necessary? Well, if you live in a temple, you eat at specified times. You don't eat in between meals. Snack, 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 snack. Fat, 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 fat. So, regulating your eating to certain times of the day and only eating up to, we used to say up to here, but actually it's more like about here, isn't it? That would be necessary, and everything above here, can you see me? Everything above here is more than necessary. There is a purport, an interesting purport in the Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada talks about fat disciples. So all you disciples out there who are fat, or think you're fat, or getting fat, listen to this. Of course, some people eat very little, they just have big bodies, and that's not what was being talked about in this purport, but it's talked about a person who, sometimes you don't eat much, you get fat, maybe you don't exercise enough, or your metabolism is slow, but sometimes you actually eat a lot, more than you need. So in the purport, Prabhupada said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he would see his disciples getting fat, he was in anxiety, because he thought they're eating too much. And he criticized, and Prabhupada also criticized, that if someone takes the devotional service just so they get prasadam and a place to sleep, they'll become a renunciate, then they spoil everything. So when he saw these disciples getting fat, he was in anxiety, because he knew they were eating too much and sitting around, and sleeping probably too much. So if you're getting fat, then maybe you're breaking this principle, eating more than necessary. Unless, of course, I have many godbrothers who weigh over 200 pounds, who when they joined weighed about 120 pounds. But that does happen when you get older, and they're probably eating less. So, another nice story, which I've told you before, but in case you don't remember, I'll tell again. And Prabhupada, in his, as many of you may know, Prabhupada in his later years was not well, and he couldn't eat much. And he couldn't sleep much. And he told one of his servants that he could hardly eat anymore and he could hardly sleep. And he said, he was joking, and he said, well, I can't mate, there's no question of mating and defending, so I guess I'm liberated. Because liberated means you're beyond the body, right? At least in this sense. And then he told the devotee, he said, you know, I always prayed to Krishna that I could give up eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Which, of course, for us would be a kind of a nightmare, right? Right? If you had to give that up, wow. But that just goes to show, that helps us understand this verse a little bit, that Prabhupada would be very happy if he didn't have to eat or sleep. Would you be happy if you didn't have to eat? Probably not. We're very happy eating, aren't we? Of course we eat prasadam, so that's okay. But Prabhupada was happy, thinking that it would be nice if he didn't have to eat. Prabhupada liked eating prasadam, there's no question. But still, that sentiment was there, right? At one time, Prabhupada's servants, they would eat prasadam, and then they'd eat maha from Prabhupada's prasadam, and then they'd go to sleep. And Prabhupada would criticize them. He said, "You're worse than the non-devotees. First you eat a big plate, then you eat what I've left over, then you go to sleep." He said, right now, these karmis, they're all working hard and you're sleeping. So you're worse than they are. So he was always concerned that devotional service could turn into, or temple life could turn into a situation where people were just getting food and taking it easy. And so in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada addressed this point, because we would sometimes get people who join the movement who were taking advantage. So he said, you know, it's not a hotel. He used the word lazies and crazies. It's not a hotel for lazy people. It's not a place where you come, leave the world and just get some food, a place to sleep, and do a little work, as little as you can. So part of the idea, and then Prabhupada once said, if you can digest stones, then eat them. In other words, eat as much as you require to do your service. So if you're doing a lot of service, eat a lot. You can eat a lot. So it wasn't just a unflexible principle that don't eat too much. It was also in relation to how hard a devotee was working. So this eating too much and sleeping, they kind of go together. Whereas if one is eating a lot and working very hard, then yes, one should eat a lot. If one is doing nothing and just eating, then that becomes overeating, even if he's eating the same amount as someone who's working hard. So that's one way we understand what overeating is. And I can tell you something from my experience about overeating. The best time to stop eating is when you're still hungry. If you stop eating when you're still slightly hungry, like you could eat more but you don't, then you're not overeating. But if you actually eat to the point where you can't eat anymore, you're just stuffed, you've overeaten. Because Prabhupada said, according to Ayurveda, you should leave half your stomach open. So you should only fill it half with food, the other half will be quarter water, quarter air. So I don't know exactly how you tell what's half, but I think you know what it's like when you eat too much. So the idea in Krishna consciousness is utility. So eating is a utility to maintain the body. So you eat till you're satisfied, but not till you're overly full. That's better. You'll be healthier, and you won't be tired after you eat. But if you're eating, and you're kind of full, and you keep eating, then I think at that point you can consider you're overeating. Overeating means eating more than you need. You don't need to eat that much. So I think we all know that feeling when we've had enough, but it's really good, and we just want to eat more. So that's an austerity. If you can control that, that's good for your spiritual life. And one may say, well, how could I spoil my life, my Krishna consciousness, by eating? Well, another aspect is one is eating very luxuriously. So Prabhupada mentions this also, I believe, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that you could actually fall down by eating luxuriously. You could actually become attracted to break the regulative principles of no illicit sex by eating luxuriously. So there is some kind of correlation between the opulence of luxurious eating, the gratification of the tongue and the gratification of the genital. As Prabhupada said, it's the tongue and the stomach and the genital, they form a straight line. And so when you control the tongue, then the genital will be controlled. If it is not controlled, if you don't control the tongue, then you also can agitate yourself. So right in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he talks about people falling down in Krishna consciousness to illicit sex or to becoming overly attached to women by eating opulently and luxuriously. Interesting, isn't it? So the idea is that we don't make an over-endeavor to eat luxuriously. That's Krishna eats luxuriously, and then we honor the remnants of his Mahaprasadam. But generally in our life, we eat, Prabhupada said, sumptuously we eat, but we don't eat luxuriously, maybe on some feast days, okay. But generally, we try to be simple, that's the point. And we want to be healthy, so we don't want to eat ourselves sick, right? So the idea is how one would fall down is one is so absorbed in life's purpose as eating luxurious prasadam. Even it's prasadam, Prabhupada said. Even prasadam, eating luxurious prasadam can be a stumbling block. So it should be simple. Eat what's required. Don't starve yourself. Atmananda. Eat what is required, but don't live to eat. And try to keep it simple. Nice, sumptuous, but a little simple. Now, I believe there was a story, something to the effect that one devotee was he either had engaged in illicit sex or he was having sexual dreams, and then Prabhupada said, eat simple, don't eat spicy food, like that. Simple. So there is a correlation between how the mind and body are affected and how they're affected by what one eats. There's definitely a correlation. And certain foods, at least for men, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for women, but certain foods which are very rich in protein are often sexual stimulants. And therefore one may eat certain foods and feel sexual energy. That's coming not so much from the mind, but more from the body. The mind may be fine, but then the body may become disturbed. And that's an interesting phenomenon. It can be the other way. The body is not disturbed, and the mind becomes disturbed. Then it disturbs the body. And the body can become disturbed by overeating or eating opulently or eating more than required, getting fat, putting on weight, sitting, like today, most jobs, you're just sitting at a desk. You actually don't need to eat a lot. Actually, if you're using your brain, it's better you don't eat much. So, if you're doing hard physical labor, that's different. So, those are some thoughts on eating, and I know you all like to eat, and those are probably depressing thoughts, right? Atmananda is happy to eat very simply, right? And Sharanagati makes really good samosas, and if we talk about her samosas, we're all going to get hungry. So we better not talk about them. Now, what is luxurious eating? Like, take some eggplant and tomatoes and curd. Deep fry the curd, deep fry the eggplant, even deep fry the tomatoes. And then make a chance with a lot of ghee. And then put a little sugar in it, and then throw in a lot of sour cream. And that's what I call opulent eating. Yes? What do you think? Rich, creamy, sugary, deep fried. Lots of cheese and curd and chocolate and gulab jamuns and sweet rice and what else? Not necessarily heavy food, but very rich, very creamy ghee, full of ghee and cream, sugar, as opposed to just cut up some vegetables, make a simple chance, and a little bit of ghee. Yeah, like that. You see the difference. Now, you're having some festivals, parties, and so forth. If you want to make it nice, of course, right? But we're talking about your daily fare, all right. And what's for dessert? Well, we've got triple layer, we've got chocolate cake, and in between each layer of chocolate cake is a ½ inch of cream cheese. And then it's topped off with whipped cream, and then we've got some cherries on it and some walnuts. And then we top it off with a little more whipped cream. And I eat that every day. That's, you understand? What is the chocolate devotees can eat? Well, definitely white chocolate. No controversy about white chocolate. But there's controversy about the other chocolate, because it contains what is believed to be a stimulant. It is said to contain chemicals, maybe the chemicals that a woman secretes when she falls in love. Whoa. Now, I can't testify for either of them because if I eat chocolate, I go to sleep. It just makes me very drowsy and tired. So I can't verify by my research on my own body that it's a stimulant. It does not stimulate me, but it puts me to sleep. And I have to say that I never ate chocolate for 30 years until I got married, or 20 years. So now my wife fed me chocolate, and I dutifully ate it as she gave it to me. But it never put me to sleep. Can you be a bona fide ISKCON guru and eat chocolate? That's a good question. That is controversial. We could talk about that for about 1,000 years. I can't say I fell in love with anybody after eating chocolate. If I could fall in love with Krishna by eating chocolate, then that would be really cool. But you can fall in love with Krishna by eating prasadam. White chocolate apparently has none of the above mentioned ingredients, so most devotees are good with that. A lot of devotees do not eat chocolate because they believe it's a stimulant, and I can say from my personal experience that my realization of chocolate is that it's a very, if you like chocolate, it's quite a high level of sense gratification for the tongue. So aside from whether it's a stimulant or not, at least it isn't for me. And wasn't for all my godbrothers who drank chocolate milk and went to sleep at night. So but I have read that there are certain kinds of chocolate that are more stimulating and others are not, and white chocolate is not. So white chocolate's okay, as I've been told. And, but it is a very high form of sense gratification. So in that regard, don't they sometimes say that, like, when you're depressed, you should eat chocolate? Because I guess there's so much sense gratification in it, it'll just take you out of your misery. So if you like chocolate, then I would say, don't eat it that much. Because you like it so much, that's an austerity for you not to eat it, right? Okay, let me rephrase that. Okay, you can have chocolate once a month after chanting 50 rounds. How about that? Hare Krishna. Wow. I'm only relating my experience. If you eat the chocolate, you know, the chocolate, just plain chocolate, not chocolate cake or cupcakes or brownies, but just the chocolate sweet balls. The pure chocolate, that's a high level of sense gratification. Chocolate cake, carob cake, I personally don't find it so spectacular, but those little chocolates, watch out for those guys. They can be addicting, right? And then, you know, you're going to get addicted to chocolate, and then what are you going to do? You have to go to Chocoholics Anonymous, and then I'll be responsible for getting you into trouble. Cocoa should be avoided, some people say, but according to my experience and research, I haven't found that it's got something in it. It's not caffeine, it's something else. That's supposed to be a stimulant, but I suspect you'd have to eat a lot to get stimulated, because I don't have that experience. But all I can say is there's some devotees who do not eat chocolate because they believe that it's a stimulant, or they believe that it's high degree of sense gratification, or that it causes you to excrete chemicals, or it has chemicals in it, which are the same chemicals excreted by when women fall in love. But guys, women like chocolate, so maybe you have to buy your wife chocolate, I don't know. This has been a debate that's gone on for many years, even on the GBC level, and in my travels I find that many devotees just don't eat it, and many devotees do. The ones who are still eating it they haven't left Krishna consciousness yet, so like I said, you know, if your guru doesn't accept chocolate, you're going to have to get a Siksha guru who does. Put his picture on the altar, and when you offer chocolate, you can put it in front of him, and it's bona fide, right? So I also had an interesting thought that we all want to do what's right, that's for sure. Yes, we want to do what's right, but sometimes we get too much into rules, and we get a little crazy about rules. And so I don't think it's good to get too crazy about rules and regulations, you know. I mean, like, I don't think there's a hellish planet for chocolate eaters. I haven't read about it in the Bhagavatam. But, you know, really, you know, if your guru really doesn't want you to eat it or says don't eat it, you probably shouldn't eat it. And just like, that's your austerity. But I think every guru will let his disciple eat white chocolate. I think. But, you know, we have rules, we have regulations, but at the same time, we want to be careful. Yes? That we don't become too fanatical. And especially towards other devotees, if they're doing something that we feel is not right, you know. You don't eat chocolate, but you see someone else eating. So be a little sattvic in your approach. Don't be so crazy, Prabhu, you can't do that. Do you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to have to go to a 12-step program pretty soon to break your addiction to chocolate. Maybe, I don't know. But my daughter grew up and she didn't like chocolate. She must be very advanced. But now she likes it, so... Am I a bad father to bring my daughter chocolate? I'm bringing her back chocolate from America on the order of my wife. So I have a moral dilemma now. Should I bring the chocolate back to her, or should I not? Should I disobey my wife? On what grounds should I not bring the chocolate back? Maybe that'll be the topic of our next class, right? Should I or should I not? Would Lord Jagannath accept white chocolate? I've never seen it offered in the temple because when you're worshipping deities, you should not offer something which is not cooked by you. And so, unless you can make your own chocolate, and I don't know how you would, generally we don't offer it. I mean, chocolate powder and you put it in something. Every temple is different. Some temples you go to, and right in the temple, you're eating chocolate. So Guru Nishta says, for me, not eating sweets of any kind is an austerity, which I try and fail at. What to do when we fail in our austerity? Don't make a vow you can't follow. Just eat less sweets, but not no sweets. Or do what I do, eat dates and apples. They're sweet. You could, for the month of Damodar, make a vow not to eat sweets. But if you like sweets, different people have different body types, and some people like sweets, so you just eat in moderation. Everything's fine in moderation. Don't worry about it. And some people just like sweets and some don't. They have different body types, but everything is meant to be done in moderation. Yes? So, Prabhupada, he gave a lecture like that. He said, you eat one samosa, two samosas, even three. But he said, beyond that, it's just lust. It's like, when you get to that point where you really don't need it, then it just becomes lust. Or Prabhupada said greed. So, you have a sweet tooth, fine, so you eat something. You eat one gulab jamun, maybe you indulge in two. When you get to 3 or 4 or 5, it's like, okay, this is not necessary, right? So that's the meaning of not overeating. It's just you eat what is required. And so maybe you have a sweet tooth. So if you don't eat a sweet, you go nuts. So you eat a sweet. All right, So you ate your sweet, okay. Gurunisa says, I feel like I get hypoglycemia without sweets. Not able to decide if I make it happen. That may be. You could ask your doctor also. I don't really know a whole lot about hypoglycemia. I thought it was, you just have to eat every 4 hours or something. Which probably means you can't fast on fast days. Probably get dizzy. But as you become more Krishna conscious, you can control yourself better because you just live in a different world, The world of sense gratification is not really that important to you as you advance. So as it becomes less important, you can simplify your eating. And what becomes more important is your service. So eating is just there to facilitate your service. So that's what happens when you advance. And so, as I said, prasadam should be nice, but not extravagant and so opulent and rich that it's really not healthy or not necessary. That's the idea. So, would you like to hear the next principle? The next principle, number 2. Oh, we have a second half of this principle, which is collecting more funds than required. That includes collecting anything more than what is required, because the idea is you want to simplify your life for spiritual life. So if you're making an endeavor to increase your material life, Prabhupada's not referring to fundraising for the temple. He's referring to collecting more than you need. So if you get so absorbed in making money, then it's going to interfere with your, not only your time, but your consciousness. Of course, if you're a Vaishya, it's hard not to be absorbed in making money, because Prabhupada said that the nature of a Vaishya is that they make money even if they don't need it. That's just what they do. That's how they're wired. They're wired to make money. So, they make enough money, they don't need more money, and they just go out and make more money. That's just how they are. So, if you're a Vaishya, if you like making money, then more funds than required. We require unlimited funds. So what does it mean, more funds than required? More funds than are required for you to live comfortably. If you can make a lot of money for Krishna, go for it, as long as it doesn't interfere with your Krishna consciousness. But if it's just for yourself, then that can hamper your devotional service, because now you're just working all the time for yourself. And you might say, no, I'm working to support my family. That's good. You should do that. But if it becomes too extravagant and takes too much of your time, it can interfere with your devotional service, because now so much of your time is taken up making money, and so much of your consciousness is absorbed in making money, and you need so many hours a day to just do your sadhana and to do your service and just to be sane. So Prabhupada said the Indian disease is money. They always want money, and money is very important. And he said the American disease is sex. Americans are more Western disease. Sex is very important. For Indians, money is very important. So either way, it has its place. We require money. We require to satisfy our sexual needs, but more than necessary, then it becomes a problem. So, question is, what's more than necessary? Hey, I have a great job, so I don't endeavor to make more money. I just make it. Is that more than necessary? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That you have to decide what's necessary. Because I personally feel like, if you're a surgeon, right? So you go and do an operation, you make $20,000, in like 5 hours, 10 hours. Great, You deserve it. You spend all that time in college and all those years interning. But you're doing 25 operations a day. Yeah, that's not good. You don't need to make your $1 million a day, right? You don't, for yourself. All right, you can make it for Krishna, that's good. Everyone will be happy. You'll be the number one favorite in the temple because you'll give $1 million every day. Everyone will kiss your feet. But, even if you do it for Krishna, there is, as Prabhupada said, there is the possibility of over-endeavor. In other words, that you still need time for your spiritual life. So you don't want to over-endeavor in a way, even if it's in Krishna consciousness, for Krishna service, in a way that it interferes with the basic sadhana that you require. So, overeating or collecting more funds than required, or the next one, over-endeavoring for mundane things that are difficult to obtain. So that could be in devotional service. But here it's specifically saying mundane things. Things which are necessary for our life, but if it's very difficult, then what happens is our time gets wasted. And as you all know, the more time you have for Krishna consciousness, the more easier it is to be Krishna conscious. And it's very easy in material life to spend much of our time just keeping our life together. And if our lives become too complicated, then we have to spend a lot of time keeping it together. I mean, let's say you had 4 cars and you drove a different car every day. You know, you'd have 4 cars to maintain, right? So that sounds complicated. Let's say you live alone in a 6,500 square foot house. That's a big house to maintain. You know, it's big enough for 20 people. You have to keep it clean, things go wrong, you have to pay a high mortgage, high taxes and so forth. So if our life becomes too complicated, then we're spending most of our time just maintaining our lives. And this is where many, many devotees have difficulty, that unfortunately they're working very hard. And a lot of times they say, well, I'm working hard because that's what's required at my job. And that's true, and they don't have control of that. But then the question is there a way to get out of that job and find a job where you don't have to work that hard? Number 2, some devotees say, I'm working very hard because I want to retire young, and that is smart. But it's not smart to destroy in any way your bhakti so that you can do bhakti later in your life, because later in your life you may not even want to do it. So you have to be a little careful. And as I've said before, Prabhupada said, one should not work more than 8 hours a day. It's right in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the reason he makes the point is because we require quality time for our sadhana and our service. And so if we're working, we have to ask ourselves, why? Can I simplify my life a little bit? Would that be better? To live more simply so I don't have to work so hard? And I would say the answer in general is yes. And I would say if you talk to any devotee who's caught up in a complicated life, they would say, when my life was simpler, I was more Krishna conscious. It was easier to be Krishna conscious anyway. It was better. So it's something to consider, you know. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, you know. I really want this, I really want that, but what do I have to do to get it? What does Prabhupada mean by over-endeavoring? It means endeavoring in a way that minimizes our service or sadhana to a point where we can't really maintain our Krishna consciousness well. And that's why it's said here that these are principles that can destroy your devotional service. That's how your devotional service could be destroyed. Not because you don't want to be Krishna conscious, and not because you're not a good devotee, not because you're not sincere, but just that you don't have time to take the medicine and do the exercise. That's all. The medicine in this case would be service, and the exercise would be your sadhana. So, something to consider. So what do you all have to say about that? Ha 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 ha. Okay. Advanced devotees are skinny, right? Yes. Some of them are skinny. Some of them are less skinny. Ginger tea. So, the next principle, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Why is that a problem? It's a problem because one of the best ways to become Krishna conscious is to associate with devotees and discuss philosophy. What does this mean? I read this verse, Prabhupada said this, I got this realization. What do you think, Prabhu? What's your realization? This is how we churn the ocean of Krishna consciousness. You know that the 6 Goswamis, their greatest service was that they would churn the ocean of Krishna consciousness by discussing Krishna consciousness together. And through those discussions, so much insight and realization came, which was recorded in their books. Do you know, you will know in a few seconds, that some of my godbrothers go to Govardhan every year for 1 month, and they stay in or near the Govardhan Retreat Center that we have. And they spend many, many hours of the day reading and discussing Prabhupada's books. These are all very senior devotees. Because this is what devotees are supposed to do. And this is how the Sangha of other devotees inspires us and enriches us and enlightens us. Because we hear from their perspective and their realizations, we offer our perspective and our realizations. And then we start churning this ocean, and many new ideas and new understandings come. And if nothing new comes, at least we're reinforcing what we already know. And we're becoming purified by that. So, our time is valuable, and if it's used in discussing Krishna, it's properly used. And that same time, which could be used for elevating ourselves, could also be used for talking about a million other things. And there's many things to talk about, because the world is so vast. And there's apparently so many interesting things going on, like missing planes, and what else is going on these days. And I don't know what's going on. Russia, something's going on between the Ukraine and Russia. I haven't kept up on it. But so many sporting events and this and that. So, what to speak of your personal interest? You may be interested in art or music, and what's going on in the music scene, the latest album, the latest instrument, latest software. I mean, it's endless. So, this instruction is really a warning and saying, look, there's unlimited things of interest for you, for me, for others. We all have different interests. And there's unlimited things of interest that we could talk about. But none of them will make us Krishna conscious. Now, you might have to talk about them because you're using them in Krishna's service. That's different. But in and of themselves, if they're not related to Krishna, then the time you spend talking about them would have been so much more well utilized in discussions about Krishna consciousness, which would inspire you, purify you, uplift you. Like when you go to a Bhagavatam class, often you get very, very clear on some philosophical point that you weren't clear about before, and it kind of opens a new door in Krishna consciousness, doesn't it? I never understood that. Oh, now I understand. Okay, yeah. And that helps you. So, mundane talks may be enriching to understand how to do something better materially. That's okay, if we need to do that. But in general, it doesn't help us spiritually at all. And so, as I said, one of the basic principles and practices of devotional service is hearing. Hearing and chanting. And so, hearing and chanting is very powerful. Prabhupada said, when you sit in class and you hear the Bhagavatam, you are actually in the mode of goodness just by sitting there. It just brings you to the mode of goodness. Just by hearing. You don't have to do anything else. And that hearing is bringing up your consciousness. You're not doing anything. And the Prabhupada said many, many times, he says, all you have to do is you have 2 ears, you just have to listen. Srinvata sakata Krishna punya savana kirtana. By hearing kata, Krishna kata, punya savana kirtana. It's just piety. It's transcendentally, spiritually pious, hearing and speaking. Srinvatam sakata Krishna punya savana kirtana. Hridyantasto yabadrani. And by hearing, everything, hridyantasto, within the heart. Abhadrani is cleansed. Vidunoti means cleanse. By Krishna from within. So, just like the Maha Mantra is cleansing us, so this hearing is cleansing us. Isn't that nice? It's cleansing. Abhadrani, material desire, material contamination. So that's why it's so important. And no matter how beneficial material knowledge may be, or mundane knowledge may be, it can't cleanse our consciousness. It may help you. Psychologically, it may help you. Physically, it may help you. In terms of skills, it may help you get something done. That's all good. But it can't cleanse the heart. Krishna Katha can cleanse the heart. There's a nice story. This one lady, she was listening to Bhagavatam every day. And so one day she went to the speaker and she said, I don't know if it's valuable for me to hear Bhagavatam, because when I go home I can't remember anything you said. It's going in one ear and out the other. And I don't know if there's any real benefit in me hearing. And he said, could you get a basket and bring some water from the Jamuna? This was I believe this took place in Vrindavan. So she got a basket and filled it up with Jamuna water, but by the time she got to him, the water had leaked out. So she tried it a few times, and it was the only basket she had. I think he gave her the basket. And so this was the basket. So she thought, well, maybe there's some lesson here. And so she came and she said, I can't bring you any water because by the time I get from the Jamuna to you, it all leaks out because the basket, it's not solid, it's made of straw. And he said, okay, there's no water, but is the basket cleaner? And she said, yes. And then she got the point. Even though you're hearing and it's going through you and apparently out you, is it not cleaning you? You don't remember it, but it's cleaning you. You may not remember anything that I said tonight, but the fact that you're hearing right now, listening, you're getting purified. Because you could be watching television right now, right? And you could be talking politics, you could be talking sports, you could be talking about so many things. So even you don't remember, still you're hearing Krishna Katha, you're hearing instructions of Upadekshamrita. There's no trouble now, you're not getting any trouble, your consciousness is fixed on hearing transcendental instruction and it's getting purified. So isn't that nice, everyone? Just by sitting and opening your ears, you're getting purified. Okay, let's go to Mayapur TV. Get some questions. Questions. Das Anudas. Okay, hold on. Okay, let's see. Wow, hold on. Vanarati says, it's still 1 hour because I have to go to temple. Okay, Jai Vanarati and Guru Nishta and Jai everybody, and they assembled Jai devotees. Atmananda would be happy if he never had to eat the rest of his life. There are yogis who do that, Atmananda. You could learn to just live on air, if that's what you're into. You probably were yogi in your last life. I wish I didn't have to eat or sleep. I think it's a waste of time. I need a 48-hour day, yeah. That's true. We all would be better off without eating and sleeping. And so, Atmananda, if you just advance in Krishna consciousness, you'll eat and sleep less, don't worry. And Vrindavani's here. And, okay, she can't make it to the class. So Vanarati, that was from the last, held up at work. Vanarati's working so she can go to Mayapur. Take Bhakti Shastri. Das Anudas Das. Hare Krishna. What is the method to read and discuss Prabhupada's books? Do we take turns giving realizations? That's good. Unless there's some senior person who's teaching, we're going to start a Shastri study in our Sunday Vaishnava Sangha. Yeah. They're doing that in San Diego. And the reason they're doing that is because they realize that unless you have a very senior devotee and you're doing systematic shastric study, which they're not doing, that it's very helpful to let people come and share their realizations. And also share their troubles and their problems. So it's very good if I really like that. Or even if you're teaching, then teach something and then ask everyone to share their realizations. Because sharing is important. And it helps the person who's sharing clarify their realizations, and it helps the people who are listening. So yes, I think that's great, Bhatti Kelly.